A recent study detailing what archaeologists believe are the oldest known footprints in the United States is sparking new questions and upending long-held assumptions.
Long before cities, borders, or written history, humans left their mark in the most fragile way possible: footprints in mud. For decades, scientists believed the story of the first Americans was settled, locked into a neat timeline that began just 13,000 years ago. However, deep in the shifting dunes of White Sands, New Mexico, that timeline cracked. What began as faint impressions in ancient lakebed mud has become one of the most disruptive discoveries in modern archaeology. These are not tools or bones. They are moments, adults walking with purpose, children running and playing, frozen in time. And if the dates are right, they force us to ask a question that changes everything. How much of human history have we gotten wrong? The day the timeline broke, the sun beat down relentlessly on the rolling gypsum dunes of White Sands, New Mexico, casting sharp shadows across the pale landscape. The wind whispered across the sand, stirring the fine powder into fleeting clouds that vanished almost as soon as they appeared. In this vast, surreal desert, silence dominates, broken only by the occasional cry of a distant bird. It was here, hidden in what appeared to be empty stretches of ancient lakebeds, that the evidence emerged. Fragile, fleeting, yet capable of shaking the foundations of history itself. Human footprints, pressed into mud tens of thousands of years ago, now stared back at modern eyes. These were no ordinary impressions. Some were tiny, belonging to children, their small toes splayed in a playful scuffle. Others were long strides of adults, carrying the weight of survival across a harsh, icy world. Together, they told a story far older than anyone had imagined. The dating suggested humans walked this land between 21 and 23,000 years ago. That is 10,000 years earlier than the long-accepted Clovis first model, which held that the earliest people in North America arrived around 13,000 years ago. If this evidence is true, everything changes. Archaeologists have built careers on the assumption that Clovis hunters were the first. Every model of migration and every understanding of culture and adaptation would need to be rewritten. The footprints are not just holes in mud. They are a direct challenge to centuries of scientific consensus, a call to rethink the origins of human life in the Americas. Vance Holliday, a University of Arizona archaeologist and geologist, has spent nearly 5 decades studying the peopling of North America. His work spans geology, archaeology, and environmental science, reflecting the interdisciplinary approach needed to untangle the secrets preserved in these ancient sediments. Holliday's presence in New Mexico was initially routine, a study of lakebeds and sediment layers. He could not have predicted that a few steps taken by long-gone humans would force the world to reconsider its timeline. The footprints raise more than just questions about chronology. They hint at the lives of people who moved through frozen landscapes alongside mammoths and other extinct megafauna. They suggest families, children at play, and hunters navigating a world dominated by ice and wind. And they leave a question that cuts through time. Who were these people, and how did they arrive here so early? As researchers trace the footprints layer by layer, date by date, the answers remain tantalizingly out of reach, yet the story is undeniable. The day the timeline broke was not marked by a single discovery, but by the slow revelation that human history in the Americas is far older, far more complex, and far stranger than we ever imagined. Each footprint is a whisper from the past, a message left in mud, daring us to listen. White Sands before the dunes. More than 20,000 years ago, the landscape of what we now call White Sands looked nothing like the endless pale dunes that stretch under the New Mexico sun today. The area was dominated by Lake Otero, a shallow body of fresh water fed by melting snow and seasonal rains. Around its edges lay wet clay flats and soft, spongy margins where water pooled in irregular patterns. This was a rich environment for both humans and the animals they shared it with, a rare oasis in a continent gripped by the Last Glacial Maximum. The conditions that allowed humans to leave footprints were also what preserved them for millennia. The lake's soft mud recorded each step with delicate clarity. As the water levels fluctuated, sediments buried these impressions rapidly, sealing them under layers of gypsum. Over time, the wind sculpted the gypsum into the dunes we see today, effectively locking away the stories pressed into the mud tens of thousands of years ago. Without this combination of soft mud, rapid burial, and mineral sealing, these fleeting traces of human life would have been erased thousands of years ago. Humans were not alone at Lake Otero. The region teemed with megafauna that have since vanished from the planet. Mammoths lumbered along the lake edges, their enormous footprints sometimes intersecting with those of humans. Giant ground sloths moved with deliberate weight across the flats, and dire wolves hunted in packs, leaving behind their own distinct tracks. The footprints at White Sands capture the coexistence of humans with creatures that now only exist in fossils and imagination. The trackways reveal far more than mere presence. Adults are represented by long, purposeful strides, suggesting movement with intent, whether hunting, gathering, or traveling between resource sites. Interspersed among them are smaller prints, the tiny steps of children. Some show playful patterns, circles, and pauses that suggest games or training in mobility and coordination. The mix of adult and child footprints indicates family groups moving together, teaching and watching over one another. This is evidence of social behavior in its most basic yet profound form. Humans were not just surviving here, they were living, learning, and interacting in ways that mirror modern family dynamics. Ichnology, the study of tracks, allows scientists to reconstruct these interactions in remarkable detail. The spacing of footprints can indicate speed, group size, and movement patterns. The orientation and overlap of prints can suggest play, care, or cooperation. Each trackway is a frozen moment in time, a snapshot of behavior that tools and bones alone rarely capture. These people were not fleeting visitors passing through on a long migration. They were residents of this ancient lakeside landscape, navigating a world shaped by water, wind, and ice. Their footprints reveal a rhythm of life tuned to the environment and to each other. Families moved cautiously near predators, children explored safely under watchful eyes, and communities coexisted with some of the largest creatures Earth has ever known. In the soft mud of Lake Otero, the past speaks clearly, preserving not only who lived there, but how they lived, leaving behind traces that would challenge centuries of assumptions about the earliest humans in the Americas. The science that silenced the doubters. In 2021, the world of archaeology was rocked by the discovery at White Sands that seemed almost too extraordinary to be true. Researchers had uncovered human footprints in what had once been the soft mud of ancient Lake Otero, and radiocarbon dating suggested they were 21 to 23,000 years old. If correct, this evidence predated the long-dominant Clovis first model by 10,000 years. The findings sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Some celebrated it as revolutionary, others reacted with skepticism and criticism. The backlash focused primarily on the dating methods used in the initial study. Scientists had relied on seeds and pollen embedded in the sediments around the footprints to determine their age. Critics argued that these materials could be unreliable. Seeds might have been transported by wind or water, pollen could have migrated across layers, and contamination from more recent material might have skewed the results. Some doubters went so far as to suggest that the entire timeline could be a mistake, the product of misinterpretation or chance. The new University of Arizona-led study was designed to address these concerns with precision and independence. Instead of seeds or pollen, researchers turned to the ancient mud itself, extracting samples directly from the layers containing the footprints. Radiocarbon dating of mud is less common but highly effective. Mud contains organic matter, such as microscopic plant fragments and microorganisms that can be measured to determine age. Because the mud encased the footprints when they were made, dating it provides a direct timestamp for human activity rather than an indirect estimate based on surrounding materials. To ensure accuracy, the study sent samples to multiple independent laboratories for analysis. The results were consistent across all labs and tests, showing ages between 20,700 and 22,400 years. When combined with the original data from seeds and pollen, there are now 3 independent lines of evidence converging on the same timeline. In total, 55 separate radiocarbon dates from 2 research groups all pointed to the same conclusion. Humans were present at White Sands far earlier than previously believed. Vance Holliday, a lead researcher on the study, emphasizes the significance of this consistency. He describes it as serendipity in the extreme, that all the different dating methods and laboratories produced a unified record. Such alignment is extremely unlikely to occur by chance. Every measure reinforced the others, building a robust argument that cannot easily be dismissed. This is not a single outlier or a fluke. It is a remarkably coherent story, written in mud, seeds, and pollen, each piece confirming confirming the other. The scale of the evidence also matters. It is not just one footprint or one patch of mud. Researchers examined extensive trackways, documenting prints from multiple individuals and age groups. Each layer was dated multiple times, ensuring that the results were reproducible. The breadth of data gives this claim scientific weight far beyond that of isolated finds, establishing a timeline that demands serious attention from the wider archaeological community. Beyond the numbers, the study demonstrates the power of interdisciplinary science. Archaeology, geology, environmental science, and ethnology all converge to provide a detailed reconstruction of the past. Dating techniques are combined with careful mapping of trackways, sediment analysis, and ecological context. This collaborative approach strengthened the findings, showing that the footprints were not just ancient impressions, but reliable markers of human activity during the Last Glacial Maximum. With these new results, the evidence can no longer be dismissed as fringe. What was once controversial is now backed by rigorous, reproducible science. The footprints at White Sands stand as a clear record of humans in North America, long before the Clovis culture emerged. They force a re-evaluation of long-held assumptions and open the door to a broader understanding of how early humans spread across the continent. The skeptics may have had their doubts, but the science is now undeniable. These footprints are real, ancient, and profoundly important, rewriting the timeline of human history in the Americas. Who were these first Americans? Footprints have a power that artifacts rarely possess. A spear point or stone tool can tell us what humans used, but footprints reveal how they moved, how they lived, and who they were. At White Sands, the tracks are astonishingly detailed. The spacing between prints shows gait and speed. Some strides are long and purposeful, suggesting adults carrying loads or moving efficiently across the lake bed. Other prints are short, careful, and playful, made by children exploring under watchful eyes. The groupings of footprints reveal more than isolated travelers. They point to families moving together, adults guiding young ones, children imitating grown-ups, and a social structure built on cooperation and protection. The presence of children is especially significant. Their small footprints, sometimes intersecting in circular or erratic patterns, hint at play. Play is more than an idle activity. In these footprints, play represents learning and skill development. Children practice walking through uneven mud, climbing small ridges, and navigating alongside much larger animals. They were being taught survival in a dangerous environment where mammoths, giant ground sloths, and dire wolves roamed nearby. These trackways suggest a society attentive to safety, teaching, and shared experience, rather than merely surviving from day to day. Yet the footprints tell another story that puzzles some observers. No stone tools, no hearths, and no campsites have been found alongside them. At first glance, this absence seems surprising, but it is consistent with the lifestyles of highly mobile hunter-gatherers. These people relied on seasonal resources and moved frequently to follow game, water, and edible plants. They did not carry or abandon large, durable artifacts because every item had to be functional and portable. Tools made from wood, fiber, or leather may have existed, but they would have decomposed long ago. The footprints also hint at technology and movement. Walking with knowledge of soft mud and unstable terrain requires balance and skill. Families coordinated their steps, probably using shared paths that minimized energy use and avoided dangerous areas. Adults appear to have protected children while traversing the lake bed, demonstrating social cooperation and planning. Even without tangible tools, these people adapted to their environment with precision, skill, and intelligence. Cultural knowledge extended beyond survival. The trackways reveal awareness of the landscape, suggesting that these early Americans had mental maps of water sources, safe routes, and seasonal changes. They understood the rhythms of the lake and surrounding plains, and they passed this knowledge between generations. This was a society with memory, strategy, and learning embedded in their daily routines. It is crucial to remember that these people were not primitive. Labels like primitive or savage diminish the sophistication required to thrive in a harsh Ice Age environment. These families were adaptive specialists, capable of reading and responding to a complex ecosystem. They cooperated, played, taught, and moved intelligently across a landscape dominated by giant beasts and freezing temperatures. The footprints left at White Sands are more than impressions in mud. They are windows into human life tens of thousands of years ago. They tell us that these early Americans were real families with real lives, not abstract notions of prehistoric hunters. They laughed, they learned, they protected one another, and they survived in a world that demanded ingenuity and resilience. In every careful step and playful skip, these footprints speak across millennia, connecting us to the first humans who called this continent home. Rethinking the peopling of the Americas. For decades, the Clovis first model dominated North American archaeology. According to this theory, the first humans arrived around 13,000 years ago, crossing an ice-free corridor between the Laurentide and Cordilleran ice sheets. This idea persisted because it seemed logical, supported by the widespread presence of Clovis points, the iconic fluted stone tools found across the continent. Archaeologists were trained to look for durable artifacts like these. Sites without stone tools were often overlooked, dismissed, or assumed to be younger than they really were. Preservation bias played a role as well. Organic materials like wood, fiber, and leather rarely survive over millennia, especially in dynamic landscapes. These factors created a narrow window of evidence, reinforcing the Clovis first model. Yet White Sands and other pre-Clovis sites challenge this long-standing view. Monteverde in Chile, for example, provides evidence of human settlement as early as 14,600 years ago. The Paisley Caves in Oregon reveal ancient fecal matter with human DNA dating back approximately 14,000 years. Cooper's Ferry in Idaho offers further confirmation of pre-Clovis habitation. Together, these discoveries suggested that humans arrived in the Americas much earlier than previously believed. White Sands, with footprints dating back between 21 and 23,000 years, pushes that timeline even further, forcing a reconsideration of how and when humans first entered the continent. The footprints also raise new questions about migration routes. The traditional ice-free corridor may have been impassable or poorly timed during the last glacial maximum, when massive ice sheets blocked much of North America. Instead, researchers increasingly consider a coastal route along the Pacific Ocean. This so-called Kelp Highway would have provided a rich, resource-filled corridor for humans traveling from Asia. Coastal areas offered abundant seafood, plants, and shelter, allowing small groups to move efficiently while maintaining social cohesion. Evidence from sites along the coast supports this possibility, though many locations remained submerged or eroded over time. White Sands itself highlights the challenges of the interior route. During the last glacial maximum, the region was cold and dry, yet habitable pockets existed where water, food, and shelter could sustain human life. Families moving through these landscapes would have needed detailed knowledge of seasonal changes, animal behavior, and environmental hazards. The footprints demonstrate that humans were capable of navigating and thriving in these difficult conditions long before the Clovis horizon. The implications extend far beyond archaeology. Genetic studies indicate that indigenous populations in the Americas descended from multiple waves of migration from Asia, suggesting a complex integration of human beings that unfolded over thousands of years. Linguistic diversity and oral histories preserved by indigenous communities further support the idea that the Americas were populated earlier and more creatively than once assumed. White Sands adds physical evidence to these broader lines of inquiry, confirming that humans adapted to and shaped their environments in sophisticated ways long before Clovis tools appeared. Ultimately, the discoveries at White Sands demand a new perspective on the peopling of the Americas. Humans arrived earlier, traveled farther, and adapted more creatively than previously imagined. They were not passive recipients of an unchanging landscape. They were active explorers, social innovators, and ecological specialists. Every footprint, carefully preserved in ancient mud, is a testament to resilience, intelligence, and the ability to thrive under extreme conditions. The Americas were never an empty wilderness waiting for the Clovis people to arrive. They were already home to human families, navigating frozen lakes, teaching children to walk and play, and leaving behind traces that survive to this day. White Sands is not just a site of footprints. It is a revelation that rewrites the story of human history in North America, challenging long-held assumptions and opening new chapters in the understanding of who we are and how we came to be here. Footprints that will not fade. The footprints at White Sands are delicate remnants of a world that existed more than 20,000 years ago, yet their impact is profound. Pressed into soft mud along the edges of ancient Lake Otero, these impressions capture fleeting moments of human life, adults striding with purpose, children exploring and playing, families moving together across a landscape dominated by ice and megafauna. Each footprint is a silent witness to survival, social interaction, and adaptation. They are temporary by nature, yet powerful enough to rewrite the story of human presence in the Americas, challenging assumptions that have held for generations. Preservation of these tracks is a constant battle. The wind relentlessly scours the gypsum dunes, eroding layers that have long protected the mud beneath. Shifting sands, flash floods, and even subtle changes in climate threaten to erase these traces. Unlike bones or stone tools, mud footprints are extraordinarily fragile, and each year some disappear forever. Documenting and protecting them requires rapid action, meticulous recording, and collaboration across disciplines. Every footprint lost is a story gone, a fragment of early human life vanished from the record forever. Ethics and cultural responsibility also shape the work at White Sands. These footprints are not merely scientific artifacts, they are part of the ancestral heritage of indigenous peoples, whose histories are deeply connected to this land. Researchers must engage with these communities, listening to their perspectives, and ensuring that the study and preservation of the tracks respect cultural significance. Stewardship goes beyond excavation and analysis. It is about honoring the people behind the footprints and preserving a shared human legacy. Despite the progress in documenting and understanding the tracks, many questions remain. Who were the people who left these impressions? Where did they come from, and where did they go? Why do we find footprints but so few other signs of daily life or material culture? The scarcity of artifacts may reflect a highly mobile lifestyle, seasonal movement patterns, or the perishable nature of the tools and belongings they carried. Every footprint provides clues, yet the larger story of these first Americans is still unfolding. These tracks also serve as a reminder that history is not static. It evolves as new evidence emerges, assumptions are challenged, and methods improve. The White Sands footprints are an example of how courage, careful research, and patience can rewrite the understanding of our past. They are a tangible record of ancient humans moving through a world both familiar and alien, leaving traces that persist against the odds. Long before written records, cities, or monuments existed, humans left their story in mud. These footprints are that story, a direct connection across millennia to families navigating Ice Age lakes, teaching their children, and coexisting with creatures that now exist only in fossils. They are a testament to ingenuity, adaptation, and resilience. The footprints at White Sands will not fade from memory or debate. They demand attention, inspire curiosity, and invite us to imagine the lives of the first people to leave their mark on the American land. And now the question lingers. If humans were walking across North America 21,000 years ago, what other evidence remains hidden, waiting to challenge what we think we know about the earliest Americans? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. See you in our next video.